Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Larry Allen Smith, and I'm the composer of the first piece on this evening's program. Greetings, I should probably say salve, given our Latin evening that we're about to have here. As you can see from the title of my piece, there is something very Latin about it. Welcome to Rome. These are, in fact, the citizens of Rome here behind me. They're very talented musicians. You know, when I started writing this piece, I was going to write 2 orchestral movements and 6 songs. And it developed, it grew into a dramatic piece. It actually has become very operatic in the way that the piece developed over the past few months. And the reason I'm out here right now is just to tell you a little bit about the piece and to urge you, once I finish this little introduction, to read the program notes. I would like to think that you could just listen to the music and enjoy it. That would be great. But there's so much in this piece that I think if you know what's there, you'll just enjoy it that much more. So first of all, you should know I'm obsessed with Ovid, who I like to call Ovidio in the Italian. You'll see why in the program. But Ovid is a remarkable person. He is an incredible writer. He lived 2,000 years ago. But his work has influenced literature throughout history. And it's just very important work. There is something about Ovid's life, and we don't know very much, that is important in that he was, in 8 AD, Emperor Augustus decided he had done something that was bad enough that he would be sent into exile. Now, Ovid was already a very successful, well-known writer. He was also of a family of very high standing. So sending someone like that off was not something I think that was very common. Ovid was torn away from Rome. And so as the piece begins tonight in the first movement, the orchestra is actually depicting him being torn away. I have a very visual idea of what that must have been like, leaving a place that he loved so much, where he'd spent most of his life, and leaving his friends behind. It's very kind of steel and mechanical and angry and frightening. I like to use the word terror. I like the music to depict that. As we get to the second movement, we have the first song. The 3 books you'll read about that Ovid wrote in exile take the form of letters to people. And so I've used something not terribly unique to me at all, but the idea that the way we're going to hear from Ovid in Tumis, in Romania, what is now Romania, is through the letters to his wife. So the soprano is Ovid's 3rd wife. Ovid never tells us her name. She is Ovid's 3rd wife. And she is going to be reading these letters from Ovid. So we're in Rome. Ovid's in Tumis. His wife is in Rome. She was not allowed to go. She had to stay and take care of his properties, his possessions. And so these letters create a link. You'll see the text. It's always difficult. I should tell you, Cherie Caluda is singing in the original Latin that Ovid wrote, and she is singing it, as I said it, in the classical pronunciation of Latin, which is very different from the church Latin that you probably have heard more than other things. So I'm grateful to her that she learned it. I loved learning about it and setting something so strange and foreign to me. That was great. So the second movement is the first letter. Then a flute solo connects us to the third movement, which is another letter. And you'll see there's definitely a flavor to each of the letters of what Ovid is saying to his wife. The fourth movement is an instrumental movement. And you'll see that Cherie is very much in Rome with the citizens of Rome because she joins the merry band here for a dance. And that music you'll read about is some of the very first, the melody at least, is some of the very first written music that exists in the world. It's actually Greek origin, and from my study, much of what the Romans heard was Greek-influenced music. And for the percussionists, lots of crotales and metal sounds, so you now understand why there's so much of that in my piece. And I call it Memories of Rome because Ovid's in the hinterlands thinking of Rome, and they're playing the music that he might have heard. That gives way to a very operatic fifth movement. You might think of as a recitativo in an opera. Very, very powerful outburst. Again, if you'd like to, you can follow the poetry. The sixth movement is yet another letter. That's the fourth letter. I'm not going to say much about that. The seventh movement is a letter, very sweet, tender. It has the feeling of an Italian or a Siciliana, a barcarolle, a kind of gently lilting, almost lullaby type thing that happens. And then in the last movement, and this hit me as I was writing the last movement, I was thinking, how is it going to bring this thing to an end in a powerful way? It occurred to me that, and this is totally my fantasy, this is not anything scholarly, that this is the last letter that Ovid wrote to her. And so while she's reading the last letter, she's getting more upset and more worked up. And I added to the letter the actual moment, again in my head, of Ovid dying. So this is happening at the same time, very far away, because Ovid dies in 17 AD, never to return to his beloved Rome. 17 AD is 2,000 years ago, and this is the 2000th anniversary of the death of Ovid, and there are things happening all over the world, including an international symposium next week that our performance tonight actually has kind of been connected to, where they're going to talk about the work of Ovid in Sulmona, Italy, and you'll see why that place is important to me. So there is, in a nutshell, some of the information about it. We're going to take 3 or 4 minutes. The orchestra is going to warm up some more. The lights are going to be such that you can actually read my program notes. And I hope you enjoy the performance. I can tell you that these people are remarkable. I love writing for Cherie. I love working with Cherie. Edward Cumming has been fantastic. This has been a very good experience. I don't think a better experience can be had for a composer. So thank you very much.